Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, the man who coined the term raw dogging EPO, James Bale. Welcome back, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's a few days after we recorded on Tuesday, wasn't it? And
Mm.
it's been quite an intense week. I'm having sort of PTSD flashbacks a little bit to the days when I used to worry about doping in pro cycling. It's not fun, is it, all of this? But we've got other things to talk about before we get into some of the responses we've had over the last few days.
Well, I think that's what we worked out. We were discussing this because I'm sure people have probably listened to what we did last early in the week. And when we did that, the idea was that we do that so we don't have to talk about it so much on this episode, because we really do want to highlight a lot of incredible performance this week. But there's been a fair bit more stuff, it's not developed, but there's more to discuss, I suppose. More things have come out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the results and the news, and then we'll end the episode for those people who are sick to death of hearing about this. And then we'll go into more of the stuff around Collin Chartier's positive drug test. So that's the plan. But again, before we get to that, Jimbo, how are you, mate? It's been a hot minute. What's been happening in your world?
What is going on in my world? Well, it's my birthday today, so I'm going to be going for a nice long run after this, and I'm going to try and pump out like 30K as a birthday present to myself.
Mate,
Um,
come on.
getting old.
Come on. I've laid the red carpet out for you to give something a plug. Here's the opportunity to talk about something that is launching next week.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't sure whether our audience would be interested in that, but yeah, there's a new podcast coming next week, the Get Out in It podcast, which is all about trying to inspire people that maybe aren't as active as they want to be to try and get outside and enjoy nature and just get a bit of fresh air and all the positive benefits that come with all the activity. I know that a lot of our audience are incredibly active, and the triathlon world is very dialed into how important exercise is for physical and mental health. But me and one other are doing a podcast for people who aren't quite on that ladder yet, the aren't on the dialed in, I'm coached, I've got races world. This is for people who need a little bit of support and encouragement, and that's the road we're going down on that one. So if you're interested, or anybody you know is interested, then search Get Out in It on any of your podcast catchers or on YouTube.
I love it because people maybe don't know this, but before I ever did this podcast, I used to do a podcast that was probably kind of similar called Think Fit. And it was very much that like non-tri, although me and my co-host were both triathletes, so we did tend to talk about it a bit, but it was the same thing. There's like, fitness and advice sort of stuff for people who are maybe struggling a little bit. So I'm excited to hear it, man. I saw, again, I got excited because I never realized you could edit audio content. So now that I know you
I
can.
knew you'd say this as soon as because I've had to do some learning. I've had to do some learning, and it's been a as you know, I'm Jimmy Technology. So
You do own
as I
a
was
company,
doing
so I just want to put that on
as,
the record. Thank you.
as I was doing the learning, I was thinking I can't let Tim get wind of this because I'm splicing podcasts together, and now I'm going to have to actually do some work in the
I
background
wonder,
on ours.
the thing I always love, because again, it's funny I mentioned the other podcast I used to do with Robbo. He never edited. I always edited. And at one point I said, mate, you need to start editing. Like, it kills me. And it was so funny. A lot of the things I think when you don't edit, or you don't really necessarily pay attention to it, you don't care about things like position of the microphone, or like like, and suddenly when you start editing, you become so aware of it.
Yeah.
So
Or
I'm
whether
really
the other
excited
person
to.
you're recording with leans in and out of their microphone, just stop fucking leaning.
I think that's what's good about this. These microphones we've got are pretty good. So, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember the first time I edited a podcast, I think it took me like 3 hours to do it. Now it takes me about 15 minutes. It's just like bang, 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 no, done. Get it out.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
search Get Out in It on all of your channels.
Well,
Come find us.
this podcast has some things coming pretty soon, actually. I shared some stuff with you this week that I think is exciting. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There is evolution happening, isn't there?
there is. I'm excited for it. But no, always good stuff.
When
But
when do we get to talk about that?
I don't know, probably I reckon sooner rather than later, to be honest. I think maybe in the next few weeks. I want to sort of get it going pretty quickly. Sooner rather than later. Yeah, we'll see. I think people will enjoy it. But anyway, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, where do you want to start this week?
Let's start with IronMan Texas, shall we?
Let's
Should we talk?
let's
Should we talk
let's.
about IronMan Texas? Because that was the biggest race that's happened in the last few weeks, and some interesting results based both on the men's and women's side.
Mm,
What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the women's?
I think so. Well, let's definitely start the women. I think it's a great story. Uh, yeah, let's get into
Yeah.
it.
So on the women's side, Lauren Brandon led out the swim, but Jolie McCauley soon overhauled her on the bike.
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, yeah, sorry. I always struggle with that name. I don't know why. I
I'm
get I
okay
get
with
the
it.
pronunciation wrong. But
What about that certain there's a certain, I don't know, certain something that surrounds them. What would you call that? The certain energy, maybe a
oh,
certain
Anura.
an aura.
Anura, yeah. But Jocelyn McCauley led out of T2. But coming onto the run, it was Kat Matthews
Did
who
she lead out of
had
T2? T2, sorry, T2.
led out of
Okay.
T2. On the run, Kat Matthews was some way behind and had a lot to do.
9.5 minutes or something, right? Or eight and
Yeah,
a
it was
half.
about it. It was 9:30, 9:19. She was behind, but throughout the run, she was 100% the fastest athlete on the course, and she ended up clocking a 2:49.32
She,
run
she
split.
she ran faster than a lot of the male pros.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Which
think it
is
was eighth fastest run of the day or something.
it's astounding, isn't it? Especially being that you factor in the journey she's been on since her injury, and that injury coming at Ironman Texas and coming back to the same race and
Not at
having
Ironman Texas,
not
in the woodlands, same area.
yeah
Yeah.
not only having the physicality to come back and overhaul a victory like that on the run, but having the mental fortitude after an accident in the same area to come back and win this race is fantastic to see.
It was interesting because again, to me, this was a Cat was going to win this race. Like I was never even there was no doubt in my mind that Cat was going to win. And I was watching because I watched the swim, and I watched maybe an hour of the bike, and then it was getting to like 11 p.m. Sydney time. Yeah, not that keen. And I remember seeing Cat come out of the water, and she was like well down, like 5 minutes or something. Like again, it was a huge gap, and I thought, "Fuck, I know that's concerning." And then to hear that, because again, then you assume because Cat Matthews, if any, like she's such a good bike runner. I sort of expected to get to the front of the bike. So then when I then find out that she didn't, and then I saw she did that run, I was like, Jesus, that's such a good performance in the context of everything. And again, Kona slot ticked. She's going to the Big Island this year as a real contender. So great performance.
Absolutely, what an amazing performance! So the pro women finished with Kat Matthews in first place in 8:32.52, Maja Stages Nielsen in 8:34.51, and Jocelyn McCauley in 8:45. And Kat said on the finish line, it was pretty special. I didn't have a great day. I don't think a bad swim. I didn't have a great day. I don't think a bad swim, a bad bike, but I managed to pull it back on the run. I'm so happy and grateful for my entire team who got me to the start line, and I don't know how I finished. It must feel remarkable having gone from where she was after her bike crash with the car and the injuries she'd suffered, the rehabilitation back, the journey to the start line, and then managing to pull out a race, in her own words, that she says wasn't the best, but a run like that to finish it off at the end. I mean, it's just astounding.
I think as well, like there's a real sort of takeaway here for a lot of amateurs, to be honest. And I know it's not something we tend to dwell on that much, but I know that a lot of people, when they get a bit injured or whatever, they feel like they have to really rush back, or like they're going to lose all their fitness, or if they take a couple of weeks off their training, they're going to lose it all. Like, put this into perspective. Cat Matthews nearly died last year, and here she is setting the course record for the run. Like, if you need to take a bit of a break for whatever reason, you will be able to get it back. So don't. I think that's also. I think the other thing is worth mentioning is Maya Stage Nielsen, I think, set the Danish Ironman record too, fastest Ironman for a Danish woman, I believe. I might be completely wrong with that. Don't at me. I don't care. But
yeah, you're right. You're quite right about getting form back. I mean, obviously other things can factor in, like what you're eating and what you're drinking, but it takes 3 weeks of sedentary behavior before you start really losing fitness, let alone actually actively. So yeah, taking time out is never a bad thing if you need to.
Let's talk about the men's race.
On the men's side, it was Andrew Horsfall Turner who set the pace in the water. But then into T1, Horsfall Turner clocked a 48.50 with Matthew how do I pronounce that name?
Marquist?
Marquist. Is it Marquist, is it?
You know, he was the fastest age grouper in Kona last year.
Yeah,
absolutely. Fucking incredible story. This guy's performance fucking blew my mind, actually.
And so onto the bike, Rudy von Berg lost a bit of time in T1, which left a leading trio out the front with the likes of Skipper and Hansen trying to hunt them down. Joe Skipper started well. He cut his lead down to 2:10 at 40 miles. But then Joe had a bit, he had a bit of a moment. It might be new dad brain, maybe, but he took a wrong turn.
Mm-hmm.
An age group athlete crashed in front of Hansen, which put him out the race. So heading into T2, it was Von Berg and Wilichicki who had moved clear, with each of them clocking the best of the day, 4:05 bike splits. It was the fourth Ironman of Von Berg's career, and his performance was a nod to coach Michael Iden, with whom he's worked since the latter part of 2022. It was fascinating up front as Von Berg and Wilichicki swapped the early lead. Both looked strong, but Marquez was charging in the second half and taking chunks time at both of them. Wilichicki, who appeared to be holding strongest, but he suddenly started to send out distress signals going into the final mile. And Von Berg had timed his challenge perfectly. Just 12 seconds separated them on the line, with Marquez was only 21 seconds adrift on a phenomenal pro debut. So the men's race finished with Rudy von Berg in 7:44.51, Robert Wilichicki in 7:45.04, and Matthew Marquez in 7:45.12. An interesting race, not the victory that either of us called, because we both thought Joe Skipper was going to take it. Now, Joe took a wrong turn, didn't he? And you can probably talk on that in a minute. I've got some quotes from him here if we need. But if I'm honest, he wasn't bridging that gap even before the wrong turn as quickly as I was expecting him to.
Yeah, exactly. So that was I think, again, I debriefed with Joe pretty much immediately. Again, I think like first thing when I wake up in the morning, basically, because again, it was, again, like I said, I went to bed and woke up and I just expected, when I went to bed, Joe had got the gap down to 2:10 in the first 30 miles. And I'm like, game over, boys. Like, here we go. Joe's got this. Went to bed, woke up, and I couldn't even see Joe in the results. I was like, what the fuck has happened? Like, again,
it's exactly what happened to me. I mean, I didn't go to bed, but I stopped paying attention. When I came back, I was like, where's Joe? And I was leafing through the tracker, trying to find him and see where he was.
Well, and my gut is always there's been a crash, especially an athlete like Joe, because Joe's such a warrior. So I think, fuck, don't tell me, tell me he hasn't crashed. Found him, like I sort of went back to and I found the last split that he was at and everything. So I'm messaging him like, yeah, okay. And we had a debrief. And like to say that he got the gap to 2 minutes and then sort of the wrong turn played a factor, I don't think tells the real story, because, he got that gap down to 2:10 and then the gap actually extended back out to over 4 minutes. Exactly. And I think he took the wrong turn at like 172 kilometers of the bike course. So he was, well towards the end. Worked out that he did, what did he say? Like an extra 8K or something. And because it's on a motorway as well. So it's because it's a looped thing. So it kind of, you wouldn't even really necessarily realize you're off course really. And it wasn't.
What happened? What happened? Was he brain fucked?
Apparently just the sign. It wasn't pretty. From what he said, he knew in the briefing that was from a certain distance you turned off, and that distances didn't quite line up. And then it was because you're on the motorway, you have to almost take a U-turn up or the wrong way up an exit ramp, if that makes sense. And the sign just wasn't turned the right way. And he say again, and I've heard that again on his podcast. You can hear this. I had the conversation with him. The reason that Rudy and that knew where to go is they had a lead biker. Media bikes missed the turn. Like lots of people missed it. And the other thing that I heard as well, that there was a heap of crashes. And again, this is a race that's literally on a straight highway. So I don't know what that's about either. But basically he just, I actually, again,
maybe a crosswind or something, was there?
Yeah, maybe. I'm selfishly quite happy that it sort of went this way for Joe, because he has this ITU long distance world champs race that's in a week and a half is that's a big race for Joe. And I kind of, I know from our conversation that's been a big focus of his this year. So having the semi-bad result, I don't want to call it a bad result, the misstep, has certainly fired him up. And I also think it's good that it's left his legs a little bit fresher. So he still had a good workout, done a good session, got a bit of fire in the belly. Now he's going to go to that ITU race ready to fire. So that's good. But
Yeah, I've got a quote from him here. He said, towards the end of the bike, when we were meant to come off the Hardy Toll, I just didn't see the sign and kept going, thinking it would be the next turn. It was just a little confusing, as in the briefing, they said it was 4 miles from the end of Hardy Toll back in transition. Because I didn't see the sign, I carried on, then ended up finding out from an age grouper that it was well back. So I turned around and I'd added on about 8 to 9 kilometers. And by then it was basically game over. I started the run and got a split saying I was 15th and 80 minutes down. It's April. I have the ITU World Championships in 2 weeks' time in Ibiza, and I'd really like to go and put together a good race over there. So yeah, I mean, once you're 18 minutes down in 15th place, plus you've got the demoralizing factor of knowing you took a wrong turn, fuck that.
It's funny because I'm actually surprised, because you look at the year of some of the recent races that Joe's had, like that Wales race where he spent 20 minutes on the side of the road and he still won the bloody thing. Like, I'm kind of surprised that he didn't, and I'm happy that he didn't, because I think that if he tried, which I think is very in character for Joe, it probably would have cooked him. So I'm glad that I'm very happy to see that he, I think it was quite a smart decision. But I mean, apart from this clearly isn't just about Joe. There's a lot to talk about here. As I said, what's the guy who came third? The Marquist.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about the age grouper who turns pro and how often the gap is a lot bigger than they realized. He went 7:45 at his first pro race, mate. Like, fucking, like, that is bravo. Like, that's okay. You're legit. Rudy von Berg, we saw, had a pretty up and down year last year. And one of the things I was curious to see is how his relationship, or how the coaching change to Mikel has sort of gone. This is the first opportunity because it's been long enough. Pretty good, I think, to be honest, I think is what we can say. I mean, I love Rudy von Berg. I think he's an incredible athlete. So to see him have success makes me happy. And then our friend Robert Willowiceki, or Willowiceki or whatever, he's our mate who did that indoor Ironman and set
indoor Ironman.
Yeah, love it. Mate, he's not just an indoor guy. That's a legitimate performance. So
no, he came off the treadmill and proved his worth. Eh?
didn't beat that 7:35 that he set on the indoor trainer, but still a pretty solid race. So
I'd love it. I'd love it if he did. Love it if he rocked up and just buffed at 7:35 out.
We talk a lot about wanting to see close races, and I actually got told off by our favorite stalker Fernanda de la Vega, who always gets the shits when I shout her out. She said, because I think she said something about, and I was like, I lost interest. And she's like, "You fucking hypocrite! You're the one always talking about that you want to see close races. This was a super close, exciting race, and you'd like just dismiss it." It's like, well, I'm not. It was middle of the night. Like, I'm not that diehard a fan that I'm gonna stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning and watch it. But yeah, it sounds like it was a really exciting race. From what I saw, the broadcast seemed okay, to be honest. I mean, it was Greg Welsh and Marinda Carfrae were on the commentary when I was watching. Greg is a bit hit and miss. He's not bad. I think Rennie's a good addition, but yeah, from all reports, it was okay. I didn't see the massive outcry that we've seen at other races, but yeah, some good performances in the Lone Star State, mate.
Yeah, it really was. And I watched a significant portion of the race, but then I had to go and do stuff. And that's when I tuned back in later and Joe had disappeared. He did do a bit of a run off the bike, didn't he? He did about a 9-mile run off the bike
12K, I think.
After he'd
1 lap.
or something like that.
Right.
So, a bit of a training day for old mate out there.
Anyway, good on him.
So, also in results, we had Ironman 70.3 Peru.
I know nothing about this race. Like, nothing.
No, there's a short summary here, which I'm just going to read verbatim because otherwise I'm picking bits out. In the men's race, the day started well for O'Donnell as he exited the water in front of the group alongside Rodrigo Gonzalez, Armando Abunza, and Martin Beeza Munoz. In the second group, American Dylan Gillespie, along with Brazilian Igor Amarelli and Chilean Martin Urula. Can they just have some easy names?
Just read the results, dude. Do yourself a favor.
Battering me this.
We'll have a chat about Tim O'Donnell. We'll move on because
they're around 40 seconds from the front as the 8 men left T1 with a minute off each other. Basically, Tim O'Donnell won. Tim O'Donnell came in first place at 3:46.11. Igor Amarelli came second at 3:47.19, and Dylan Gillespie in 3:49.50 rounded off the podium. So, mate, Tim O'Donnell going strong, eh?
Well done. How old is he?
Yeah,
42. 41,
Yeah,
42.
something like that. Yeah, he's
Again, post heart attack, very impressive. I love Tio. I think it's great to see him still out there doing his thing because Rini retired, so now Rini's not
yeah,
doing it anymore.
she has retired. And like you say, the ability to push this hard post having the cardiac issues that he had during a race and finished the race. It still astounds me that.
Yeah,
Not that I'm recommending anybody who thinks they're having a heart attack pushes through. It's
yeah.
not
Stop. That's
not the
heretical
sensible
of
thing
us.
to do. But I don't think he knew it was going on. But to come back and to still be performing at that level and putting out a race like that with a time of 3:46.11, very, very impressive.
Absolutely. What about the women, mate? Who just give us the results?
Oh, on the women's side, Pamela Oliveira was 4:15.35 in second place. Romina Biaggioli was 4:24.22, and Bianca Castioli was 4:25.37. So a bigger gap in the women's race of just under 9 minutes. Um,
Pamela
so
Oliveira is a
Pamela
very good athlete. So
Oliveira, yeah, exactly. She took it fairly handily, and I think she was uh, first out of the swim, and then just led from the start and built that lead throughout the race.
very good. All right. That's all I have to say on Peru. What's next?
Challenge Gran Canaria.
Yeah, this was a bit
This is
exciting,
a
wasn't it?
I enjoyed watching the results from this, mate, because it was last week. I think you were saying Sam Laidlaw. Who's Sam Laidlaw?
That's not quite what I said. Thank you very much. But
I
yeah,
think I think that was a direct quote, wasn't it?
I hate Sam Laidlaw. No, that wasn't. I think I just said, I said that there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and I'm curious to see how he handles it. Well, apparently. That's the
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. So on the men's side, Sam Laidlaw won Challenge Gran Canaria in 3:40.27. Martis Ma, Matis Marginer
Matthias
Matthias
Margiera. Yeah.
Magiera came second in 3:40.40, and Aaron Rourke in third in 3:41.40. Notable fifth place in Patrick Lang with 3:44.16. Why can't I pronounce any names this week? Normally, the roles are reversed, mate. Normally, it's you that's butchering pronunciations
I'm
and I'm having to
Australian as well,
correct.
so I've got an excuse. Yeah, look, I was following this race to the best of my ability on basically I was asking Belinda Grange what was happening. She was keeping me informed because the stream was unwatchable, as it often is at this event. But mate, super close racing, right? Like, Sam Laidlaw and Aaron Royal were pushing each other hard. And then Aaron sort of dropped off at the tail end of the run, and we had Matthias Magiera really pushed through, and him and Sam then sort of had this battle. So it was fucking right down to the wire. In fact, watching I actually thought Sam didn't have it. So then to check the stream and saw Sam had won, it was quite exciting. But oh man, again, I think Sam Laidlaw is such a positive force for this sport, and I'm very happy to see this result. Like I said, I thought there was a lot I was curious to see how he performed, and I'm very happy to see that he performed well because I think I want to see him build with confidence, and I want to see him get a bit more arrogant, and I want to see him, cause a bit more shit because I think it's important for the sport that we have some characters like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And such a close finish is always fun to see, isn't it?
what do you think about
And
Patrick Lang?
what do I think about Patrick Lang? I don't know. I find him so hard to judge. I
Yeah,
find him so hard to judge. He's probably the athlete in the pro men's field that I find the hardest to ever get a handle on. I kind of get the similar feeling in the women's side from Annie Haug, who I
so
know had
she
a
fucking
fantastic race
dominates
here, who
though.
we'll talk about in a minute. But like he can have a day where he's on form and a day when he's not. I don't know what's going to happen with Patrick Lang. My gut tells me we might have seen the best that we've seen from him,
Mm.
but I wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong, and I also wouldn't be upset if I was wrong.
See, it's interesting because a lot of people sort of go, yeah, he's sort of his best is behind, but it's not like he's older, right? But he's not like we're not talking about a 40-year-old here. Like, what is he, 30, 36, 35, 36, something like that. So,
Yeah, something
he's,
like that.
a lot of people, actually hit their prime when they're in their late 30s. So it is, I don't know. I get the impression with Patrick Lang that he is a bit more of that iron distance specialist. A little, I think he's becoming that. Not that he's clearly not bad at this, but I think that this sort of bike course doesn't suit him. He needs he's again, I don't want to say that I'm accusing him of anything, but I think that he does tend to go very well off an easier bike. If he can get with the pack, have a sort of relatively even paced effort, or even balanced effort in terms of watts and things like that. He tends to, I think, run a lot better. Again, I just think that 2:30 marathon he did in Israel last year was fucking mental. But like even his run split, he wasn't earth shattering. So yeah, maybe early season. Obviously he is
early season race, probably not one that he's targeting with every ounce of his being. So we'll see. And also, he's not one of those athletes that, he's not someone who is having to target races specifically to win, to try and make a living throughout the year, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's a high profile athlete, 2-time Kona winner, got some solid sponsorships, got a steady source of income from those.
Yep.
So he can target races that he thinks are going to build him up throughout the year. So
yeah,
he's got a little bit more.
It's a strategic race season to maximize performance rather than a how can I make money sort of
Yeah,
season.
exactly.
So,
He's not trying to pick his
I
race for
did.
this season to try.
I did like that. I thought. Did you see Sam Laidlaw's post race interview? And that's what they basically said. It's like, it's funny how when you get paid to train, it makes it a lot easier to be a pro athlete. I thought that was pretty funny. It's like, yeah, he's clearly a lot more established now that he's got some sponsors and stuff on board and a bit of success, bit of money in the bank. So yeah, again, I think that's exciting to see what he can do. Actually being able to be a true professional now, rather than a guy who's just sort of trying to make it happen. So yeah, and then Aaron Royal, I just want to give a mention to. I thought he was very valiant. He's this guy that I think is one of those guys just always on the periphery of an excellent performance, and he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I feel like we're going to see Aaron Royal have a breakthrough race this year that's going to really put him on the map more so than he already is. Because you look at him, he's always on the podium. He's always there or thereabouts. And I think he's a very, very dangerous athlete. So one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck to him.
Women's race.
On the women's side, we had in first place was Annie Haug in 4:05:38. Then Didi.
Do you have a stroke?
How do I say that?
Didi Diderix?
Diderix, that's it. 4:17:52, and Megan McDonald rounded off the podium in 4:18:34. Now, this was a domination from Annie Haug, wasn't it? Having name checked her a minute ago, saying that she has the days where she's on and the days where she's off. This was the day where she was on, and it's a building sort of series of performances. I was very impressed.
Again, let's just put things into context. People lost their minds when she ran a 1:16 in Lanzarote. And then people lost their minds when Tamara Jewett, and by people I mean me. It was me. I'm gonna name and shame. It was me. I lost my mind when we saw Tamara Jewett run a 1:13 in Oceanside. She ran a 1:10, mate. Is that what your results is? Because I'm looking at that, I'm like, God, I hope I'm right. Because I've got a 1:10:59 run split for
her. Let me just double check the run split. It's just my screen's just gone blank. No, here we go. Haug dominates. It doesn't actually have the run split on here.
Well, I'm on the PTO thing, and it says 1:10:59, which, if that's true, that's only a minute and a bit slower than the winner, Sam. That's almost the same speed as Aaron Royal. It's 8 minutes faster than Didi. It's 9 minutes faster than Megan. Like, I'm so nervous now that I've got this wrong. I'm like, oh, please, I hope I'm right.
Well, I mean, look, if that's what the stats say, that's what the stats say. And it's a hell of a performance and a hell of a run. I mean, I can't imagine it. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine running that quickly? I can't imagine.
I can't do it fresh, mate. But again, I think it shows that she's, Annie Haug is in I guess not a rich amount of form, but she's, performing really well early season, which is exciting. I'm looking up her results right now. Keep talking. What else do you think about the women's race? What do you think about Didi Diederix, mate? What do you think of her performance?
Yeah, I think it's not bad at all. Second place is obviously a strong place to be. That's fucking
incredible, mate. That's a ridiculous run. That's 71 minute. That's fucking mental, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I think second place is a strong place to be regarding Didi, but it's when your deficit is that strong, then what are you going to take from it? You've just got to go away from this race and build on where you let the ball drop. I have a quote from Annie Haug here. She said, a race is a race, and you always have to pull out a good performance. My swim is okay. I tried to stay on Caroline's feet, but I was on my own. I tried my hardest, but the bike was tough and hard. The run was so cool. You run alongside the beach. The crowd was amazing, supporting all the way. I'm so happy to take the win. It was an amazing race. I'm surprised she could even see the crowd. They weren't just a blur as she ran past at that speed.
I cannot
Because,
believe that run, mate.
yeah.
110. That's fucking mental. Like that is crazy fast, right? I'm not delusional here. We used to, if a guy went 110, we thought it was a good run split.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy fast in the world of triathlon, definitely.
Fucking hell. Look out.
You know, what's a pro runner's half marathon pace?
For a
102,
woman?
103 for a woman, yeah.
I don't know, actually. I'm not going to make any statements. The men do it in just under an hour, right?
Just under, yeah, just under. I you know the guy that won the London Marathon, I sent you his race splits.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like 2:57 or 2:59 was the slowest kilometer he did over a marathon distance. I
It's
went
just
out and did some
madness.
intervals on Tuesday, and I couldn't run one minute interval that fast just to see if
Um,
I could, and I couldn't do it.
Challenge Taiwan. I don't have a lot to say. I just want to shout out the winners. Caleb Noble from Australia won in 3:45. In the women's race, I want to talk about this because Amelia, again, I represent Amelia, so I'm a little bit biased, but Amelia fucking dominated, mate. She went 4:03:40 for the win, 24 minutes ahead of second place. 24 minutes ahead of second place, mate. So,
There you go. Long
so
may the dominations continue, eh? From your perspective.
absolutely. Any other result? I mean, I saw that Ash Gentle had a race and she didn't do too well, but I wasn't familiar. It was Peniscola Infanteri where she came third. Again, I think I saw her make a comment basically saying that she always struggles with that transition to Europe from Australia. We're not far out from Ibiza, so I'm curious to see. Well, I'm always curious. It'll be interesting to see how she sort of sharpens up before that race in a couple of weeks because we know that she's undefeated at that PTO distance. But yeah, that's sort of the races. Is there any other races we've got to talk about, or is that all of the
No,
results?
no. But I do want to talk about Gustav Iden because he has
Please.
revealed the reason behind PTO Ibiza no go is he goes all in on Paris. So Gustav Iden has said he would not be racing the PTO European Open because he had committed completely to the next round of the WTCS a week later, set to be held in Yokohama. Sharing his decision on Instagram, Eden revealed that performing in a World Triathlon race is his top priority. WTCS Yokohama is now 3 weeks away, and the prep is going well with good brick session today. As you might have heard by now, I'm not doing the PTO European Open Ibiza. Going in on a short distance thing, and Ibiza the weekend before just makes it unrealistic to perform in a World Triathlon race many time zones away, unless you are Christmas Christian Blumenfeld. Hopefully, some of the guys will take responsibility and tire him out before his travel to Japan. So Iden has started his season at WTCS Abu Dhabi, where he finished 52nd before going on to take 14th at the European Cup in Qatar, and most recently 5th at the Arena Games finals in London. So his results this year haven't been dreamy, but it looks like he's being tactical on this front and prioritizing the WTCS.
So, what happens if he goes there and is shit again?
Then hopefully I there are two things, aren't there? I hope that he finds success at the WTCS and actually gets what he wants.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, he's wasting time. He's
Gustav,
wasting time. Yeah.
Gustav, if you're listening and they have you hostage or they have a member of your family that they are holding hostage, put up an Instagram post and blink twice, and we'll know that you're being held against your will by the Norwegian Triathlon Federation because he, I am impressed because it shows the dedication to the sport and the team over his own commercial success because he would go to this race as the absolute favorite in my mind. It's 100. No, it's what is it 100,000? It's still $100,000 for the win.
Mm.
It's a pretty hard thing to, sort of go, nah, thanks. I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I mean, I worry that he's wasting time flogging a dead horse that isn't going anywhere with the WTCS because don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic short course athlete. He's up there with some of the best in the world. When you're finishing race, when you're racing in these series, you're one of the best in the world. But he's not finding the results that others are, and I worry that he's going to waste a year where he's got such a a sort of natural ability when it comes to the long course racing, the 70.3 distance, the Ironman distance, and the PTO distance as well. And I want to see him go all in on that and really turn his hand to it. But
Yeah.
He's obviously, like you say, he's got a commitment and a passion to see what he can do in Paris, because that's going to be his priority. And so if he wants to find out whether he can win a medal in Paris, which is probably where it's coming from, is I want to know what I can and can't do. Then big respect for that, for making that decision.
You see, I think I love the optimism of athletes. I love that, I think to be one of the best athletes in the world, you have to believe that anything's possible. It's not just the tagline of Ironman. I think this is a creed that a lot of them live by. I get the impression that at this point with Gustav, it's not all about the medal. I genuinely feel that it is about doing his bit for his team. I wonder if it is a case of we've acknowledged that Christian is our big hope for the gold medal. So we need to build the best possible team around Christian for Christian to succeed. I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if this is more a case of Gustav is doing his thing to go to the Olympics and be Christian's domestique almost. Because if that's the case, fuck, I admire that. Like, I think that is very, very admirable from, it's not bad when you've got the Ironman world champion as your domestique at the Olympics. Yeah, I think because that's the thing. I think from the outside, I think we struggle to comprehend how tight a unit that Norwegian team is. Like, they are a team, and we sort of see it at long. I know they want to beat each other, but they do their races together. Like, they, in Kona, they did the bike together. They did most of the run together. They swam together, and I think that that's probably part of it. I mean, I'm guesstimating here. I'm sort of making assumptions, but I think that if that is true, that's very, very selfless.
Yeah, admirable. We'll see how it plays out. I'm interested, mate. I'm interested. I really am. His journey through this year and his short course journey will be interesting, because he is a competitive animal. And if he's not getting the results that he wants, because it's all well and good prepping to be if your version of things is correct, he's prepping to be a domestique at Paris. He's still going to have a year where he's not getting results that he wants. He's not getting wins, and a pro athlete doesn't want to sit through that year. So there may come a time where he's finishing 5th again, 6th again, 8th again at WTCS races, and thinking, you know what, I could be doing 70.3 and winning stuff.
I think that's what shocks me the most about this ride, is that I always had the assumption that we'd still see them at the PTO events. Like, that's why I was a bit surprised that he wasn't on the start list, because I assumed that I just assumed they'd both be there. I also thought that based on those early season performances we've seen from it, it would be more likely that he's going to walk away from the short distance and start going back to the middle distance and long distance things. The fact that he's done the opposite, I think, that's why I sort of am going, fuck, okay, I wouldn't have expected this. So yeah, it's interesting. And you're right. I mean, I'll be completely frank. I think he's wasting his time. I think it's a fool's errand almost, Gustav. I'm sorry to say, but when you are that good at the middle and long distance stuff, just go fucking win 10 other things, mate. Like, what are you doing? We saw what he did on that 2019 Nice course at 70.3 Worlds, where he won it, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? It's an Ironman, mate. You just did the same thing in Kona. This course we know you can perform on. Just literally create a leg. I mean, he still can. He's very young, but yeah, we'll see. I'm a bit less excited. I mean, I'm very excited about the race because we got, Christian, Jan, and Alistair racing, but I would have liked to see Gustav there as well.
Yeah, agreed. Now, shall we go into the darker side of the sport now and discuss some things we don't really want to talk about?
I think that's a good point. So guys, if you are sick of hearing about the Collin Chartier news, it's probably a good time to tune out. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week. Do you want to do the stuff you do at the end now, James, or do you want to do it at the actual end?
We might as well do it now, I suppose.
Go on then, get it out of the way.
Bear with me a second. I'm scrolling down.
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance.
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. We can follow Tim at T14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. Really helps us out. It's super easy. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. If you've got any comments, suggestions, criticisms, or anything, DM Tim on social media. And for this week only, search Get Out In It on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and any other social media networks, and come and find us.
Are you going to get me on as a guest? That's the question. Am I coming on as a guest?
My co-host has actually suggested that
There you go, mate.
because of your journey from old Tim to new Tim.
I used to do the podcast rounds. It's been a while since I've been invited on another podcast.
So yeah, we've got a few guests lined up already, but we'll put you in the rotation, mate. Like a good runner, we'll have a rotation.
Perfect. I love it.
You'll be in it.
All right, guys. Well, if you're tuning out, thanks for listening. If you are sticking around, we're back to it, Jimbo. I didn't think we were going to talk about it, but we're talking about it again, mate. I want to give you...
we weren't going to discuss it, were we? But we needed to. Yeah. What were you going to say? Sorry.
Well, you found something. You have found something that I have now seen go across everywhere in the coverage of this race, and I am going to give you credit because you found it and you forwarded it to Tim Hemming and said you should use this.
Yeah, but I it was sent to be me by one other, so I can't credit having found this. But and also it was sent to me, and then it started popping up around me as well.
I take it back then. You did nothing. I give you no
my
credit.
Investigative reporting here. Yeah. So should we start there?
Yeah, let's start there.
So if you scroll, it's Collin Chartier, the guy.
I'm aware of him.
Yeah,
I'm aware of him.
So he said that he started doping in November. Had to Google it, how to use EPO. What's EPO? How to use EPO? Do I snort it? Do I inject it? Do I suppository it or whatever? And it was a learning process for him. But if you unfortunately, it's public, if you scroll down through his public LinkedIn page, then from March 2015 to May 2017, he was an undergraduate researcher at Marmont University. And the clip of text says, Collin is the lead researcher working with Dr. Michael Nordval in the study hemoglobin, hematocrit, and anthropometric alterations during the competitive triathlon and cross-country seasons. He is responsible for the design, collection, and statistical analysis of study. He has experience in blood sample collecting, microhematocrit monitors, skin fold caliper testing, BIA body composition machines, and working with human subjects. His study achieved IRB approval and will be submitted to present at the 2016 ASCM conference. No idea what that conference is, but sounds a bit like he's got experience in blood sample collecting, microhematocrit monitors, skin fold caliper testing. Not sure that's quite as relevant, but it all sounds a bit hematocrit-y, doesn't it? And hematocrit, for those that don't know, is what EPO increases your hematocrit levels, meaning your blood can carry more oxygen, meaning your blood is more viscous, and so you can get a better performance out of yourself.
Yeah, this is, as I touched on what we talked about the other day, I think that you sit there and you listen to that interview that he did, and you can instantly, with like minimal research, poke some pretty significant holes in it. And this is, I think, the most egregious example of that, right? Like, I wasn't quite sure what I'm...
Yeah.
No, actually, mate, you study this like quite extensively.
Initially, when we recorded on Tuesday, I hadn't listened to the interview that you had told me I should listen to, which is the Collin Chartier interview on the How They Train podcast. And the lie where one minute he's saying, I believe everyone's doping. And then 10 minutes later, he says, I really don't believe these guys are doping. And it's the same group of fucking people. I was like, well, that's the biggest lie in the whole thing, isn't it? And then this popped into my world. And I was just like, fuck me. But even a little self-audit, because look, science and studying in universities are interesting, and there is a version of this where that is just a thing he did at university and has no relevance to this, and like he was actually studying hematocrit levels in a different way. I mean, you can really get completely dialed in on a certain topic and not have any relation to something else, but it looks like it might.
James,
but
so
even
James,
the optics of it.
I want to talk about the optics because I have a law degree. I went to law school. I spent many years at law school slaving away to become a qualified lawyer. I did my post legal training. I did all my practical legal training, whatever needed to be admitted, and I get questions all the time from people going, hey, I got a speeding ticket. Can you help me get out of this? And I go, I have no idea, none, about traffic law. They're like, but you're a lawyer. So the law is it's not that simple. So I think that it's the fact that we're talking about a guy who has specifically dealt with what's the word? You're the guy. Say it. Come on. Don't let me hang it.
Hematocrit.
Hematocrits in triathletes and runners is a little bit more like if I put up my thing saying I studied law in relation to traffic law and getting out of police, it's not it's too specific, mate. It's very
It is,
vain.
and also the though in that interview, he was like, yeah, I had to really Google it all myself, and it's like, did you though? Because it seems like you studied it for three
You wrote a
years at
thesis on it, mate.
university,
You wrote a
wrote a
thesis
thesis
on it.
on it, and you experience in blood sample collecting and microhematocrit monitors. It doesn't
There's
sound good, does it? And the optics are terrible. And like,
well,
if you were him, wouldn't you have audited your LinkedIn page? Just gone and
or
quickly.
deleted it. I mean, the other thing as well
What
from that
does?
interview that I don't think we talked about enough the other day as well is the fact that he admits that he was like injecting himself for a long time before
Mm,
before this EPO apparently. Uh, I heard so again talking about interviews. I think a great episode you should go and listen to if you listen to this is the latest Triathlon Mockery podcast where Tom, it's not Joe, it's Tom, and he gets Thomas Dekker on. For people who
mm.
don't know or who have, Thomas Dekker was a pro cyclist, got caught for using EPO, and he's been very open about it. Almost like oh my God, a Tyler Hamilton and those sort of guys. But he was saying that you actually need to, in order to keep your blood the right viscosity and stuff, so you don't die, you actually have to inject vitamins when you use EPO. Because if you don't, like, that's also part of, you were saying that these guys have to get up in the middle of the night to get their blood thin. He was saying you need to give yourself extra iron. You need to give yourself these other things that are basically the fuel that the EPO needs to work and stuff. So it's like, again, firstly, injecting is a breach of the WADA rules. So you kind of self-confess that you've been breaching the rules for a long time, but you're also saying you did something that is supplementary to the use of EPO. It's like, you
Yeah,
really
I
didn't
mean,
think this confession through very well, did
it's
you?
the point I made on Tuesday, wasn't it? That unless you are really stupid, which he's clearly not, because he's gone to university and studied at a high level hematocrit and blood testing and stuff like that. So he's clearly not a stupid person. You don't bimble into EPO, taking EPO, something that alters the viscosity of blood and can cause blood clots and serious health concerns, are just like, oh, I'll just start injecting it and Googling it. I didn't really know what I was doing and I wasn't very good at it, hence I got caught. You don't bimble into that without support or assistance. I'm talking about Thomas Dekker. Anybody who's listening, read his book, The Descent. It's incredible.
Yeah, I want to. I actually haven't read it. I was looking for an audiobook that longer and I couldn't find it. So I'm keen to. I'm keen to. The other thing I want to talk on is there's been a lot of responses now. A lot of
Yeah.
other athletes have come out and I guess condemned it. And today, or was it yesterday? In the last couple of days, I think the two biggest that I've seen come out and really sort of say it is, and I'm surprised how similar their statements are, was Daniela Reef and Jan Frodeno. Daniela Reef, I think they both tended to actually sort of follow. I haven't got the quotes in front of me, but it followed a very similar vein to what Lionel basically said, which is sport isn't about the result. Sport is about the process, the journey. And
Yeah, Jan Frodeno's quote said, "Sport, you beautiful thing. You drive me, push me, smack me down, allow me to see the world and meet so many good people. The truest test, perceived as so hard and yet so easy, black and white. You make it or you don't. As a kid, you gave me direction. As a person, you give me values, values that I'm passing to my kids because I believe they can help shape us in a good way. Cheating in sport destroys us and all of the joy connected to it. It makes any result irrelevant. Drugs have no place in my world, and neither do those who take them. It's a privilege to live a life as an athlete, and that feeling of racing my dad 28 years ago up our local hill is still what is about to this day. P.S. Dad will tell you the story about me throwing my bike in the bushes the week before when he beat me." I don't have Daniela's quote in front of me.
it was very
I can
similar.
Google that.
It
Yeah,
was
you're
it was very
welcome to
similar.
find that if you like. But Sam Laidlow's also said, "I've rarely been shocked. I 100% believe it's possible to be the best in the world without cheating, and I'm deeply saddened that some people don't feel the same. I really hope the fans of the sport believe that true champions are real. I've worked my whole life to get to this level, and so have lots of previous race winners."
I got Danny's.
Mikkel, yeah, go on.
Meaning of success. If you're not enough without it, you're not enough with it. Winning doesn't define you. What defines you is the path you take to get there. The last days made me very sad and angry hearing the news in the triathlon world. I'm speaking up for all young athletes to give them hope that you can be the best and play fair. I'm lucky that I always believed this, and as I trained with role models when I was young, and always told myself I would walk away from the sport if I wouldn't be able to believe this anymore. Professional sport is about achieving your maximum potential with the body that you were given, to overcome challenges and to make yourself proud. You can be proud if you lose a race, if you give your best, but you will never be truly proud if you took the shortcut. Hashtag clean sport.
Yeah, and Mikael Eden said, I'm in shock and crying just now, learning that an athlete I've been coaching for the last year has been doping. I can't distance myself enough from this action. It's such a complete crash in my values, it's unthinkable. The only positive I see from this going forward is the anti-doping organization catching the athlete. Trust is going to be hard going forward, Mikael. There are other responses that we can go into. The internet is aflame. I'll read the PTOs as well because it's short and sweet. The PTO said protecting the integrity of our great sport is absolutely paramount to the purpose of the PTO and our members. There is no place for doping in sport, and we have zero tolerance for anyone who abuses this. We are seeking legal and expert advice on the specifics of Chartier's ADRV as they relate to the PTO and cannot comment further until it is completed. So they're just hedging their bets. The Norwegian Federation said it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad to hear about this, but he is not part of our association, so I do not feel it's right for us to comment on anything beyond that.
The one that I'm surprised we haven't heard from yet, and again, I'm going to get into speculation territory a little bit here, and it is sort of feeding off what we've touched on previously, but considering that this was an Ironman action that found this, and on his interview, he talked about the fact that he spoke with Andrew Messick about it. Andrew Messick was the first person that he spoke to, apparently. Why do you think we haven't heard from Ironman?
I would assume that, in this instance, Ironman is being represented by the external agency that they contracted to do the testing.
Okay.
I would assume that they are probably staying out of it in that sense to say, look, this is the company that represents us, and this is our formal response.
Okay.
But that's just a guess.
I just wonder if maybe there's more, because again, a peek behind the curtain. I have had, since we recorded that, I think after that episode we recorded, the response has been significant. I've gotten more messages about that episode than I think anything we've done the last 12 months put together. And I've had conversations with pro athletes. I've had conversations with coaches. I've had conversations with former athletes, sponsors. And I've been shocked by how willing people are to start naming names. And the lawyer in me is not going to repeat things. I think it is a dangerous, slippery slope to start going down, to start sort of, making, I don't want to say baseless allegations, but, things without fact. But I mean, one of the things that we've both been a bit frustrated by is seeing the comments and people being like, you're so ignorant to believe this doesn't exist. Oh, it's just endurance sport, fucking where. And I've definitely always chosen to be optimistic about the sport, and maybe ignorant is the right word, but I am shocked by this, the react. And again, I'm not necessarily, I think we all knew, there's money involved. There's always going to be people trying to, do what they can to sort of manipulate things. But what's shocked me is how willing it seems so many people are to name names. Like, I have had multiple athletes tell me, I've had multiple athletes named to me as like 100% definitely doping. And it's like, fucking hell, like, what is it? I think I saw a post today. It was either put up by World Triathlon or somebody, that there's this anonymous line to start reporting people who are, suspected of doing things. And it's like, don't tell me, do that. Use the mechanism that in place, because I think one of the things I've seen a lot of the discourse that's come as a result of this is that we need to talk about this more, right? We can't repeat and you said this really well, we can't repeat what happened in cycling. We need to very quickly go, no, this is happening. Let's not pretend it's not. We need to be proactive about addressing this and bringing it into the light. And one of the things I was thinking about in relation to this, is the PTO potentially trying to go and get their money back. I'd really love them to say, you know what, Collin, you can keep the money if you fucking tell us everything. But if you actually really help us to fix this, instead of protecting it, you tell us everything, or you keep half or something. Just, and I know that we shouldn't have to, and I it's not ideal, but I feel like that would be a better use of that money rather than it just going back to the PTO and put into another event or something like that. Because, this is bigger than.
Yeah, we can't make the mistake that pro cycling made, which was every time someone was caught, it was like, oh well, that's that dealt with then. Doping's solved. The 1999 tour of renewal after the Festina affair. Doping's dealt with now because we've dealt with Festina, so we're all clean now. And look where that left us. I think a positive, as I think I tweeted out on Twitter, a positive from this that I see is that so far the sport has responded, and the other professional athletes and a lot of the key stakeholders and players in the sport have responded in such a way that is like visceral and saying this is not acceptable. And a lot of the pro athletes are saying, look, this is not the norm. Because like you say, I'm getting very frustrated with the messages I'm receiving on social media saying, oh, you idiots, you don't get it, everyone's doping, it's everywhere. We're not idiots. We do get it. We understand that doping, look what happened in pro cycling, it was everywhere. But there is nuance to it. And it's not, there are differences in the way the ecosystems work. And it's not just a case of going, well, everyone's doping, so, done. Because if you look at the way that the sport has responded, it's different to the way that the cycling world used to respond. Cycling used to respond with an unenthusiastic shrug and oh, someone's been done, all right, carry on onwards. No real, nobody would really. There were a few outliers who would condemn it, but they were very few and far between.
Yeah.
But in triathlon's response, the condemnation has been universal. Look, we're not stupid though. I mean, you pull the curtain back. There may be a lot more doping than we know about. There may well be, but it's also, I'm having flashbacks to the bad old days of really getting worked up about it in pro cycling. It's not for us to ruin our own mental health by constantly telling ourselves the sport's fucked, everyone's doping, because that leads down to a dark place in your own mind where you think, well, why am I watching this? Why am I doing this?
Well, you see those people they're the people messaging us, right? Like they're the people that's what happens. And I feel like, sort of building on what you say, one of the because I really didn't particularly want to talk about it again this week. I really didn't. I wanted to have our say and move on, but I feel like what's sort of a bit different about this situation is it doesn't even feel like it's about Collin anymore. The Collin thing has happened. The Collin thing is terrible. But I feel like you're right. The reaction from the sport is not necessarily about Collin anymore. It is about the problem of doping. And I think that's a real positive, I guess, is a way of saying, is that you're right. It is, you said it's this universal condemnation, but it does feel like, and again, whether it's just lip service, whether it is a case of fuck, everyone else has said something, I better say something. But it does feel like the sport has come together and been like, we aren't about this. We don't like this. And we aren't just going to turn a blind eye. And that's I don't know if you pick up on that as well, because it doesn't feel like it's all about Collin Chartier anymore to me.
No. And that's the good thing of it. It doesn't feel like everyone in the sport is turning around and going, him, his fault, all him. This particular incident was him. And those people and enablers that may or may not be around him, whoever else was involved, we may or may not find out. I don't know. That'll be the journey over the next few weeks. But the sport isn't turning around and pointing fingers and saying, he's the one, he's the only one. The sport is taking a step back and saying, doping's not acceptable in our sport. We don't do it. There will be people that are doing it, but we need to find them root and branch and get rid of them and put solutions in place. Calling for solutions is the key. And that's what people are doing. They're calling for solutions. They're calling for those powers that be to do more. And some people have been calling for that for some time. We keep name checking Joe, but he's the one that we probably know best, who's always saying, I wasn't getting tested enough. And now that testing is increased. There needs to be more of that. There needs to be more openness and transparency.
Here's a question that, again, I don't know the answer, because to me, I would assume that the buck sort of stops the World Triathlon as the governing body. I don't know if that's the case because you're here, it's more of a federation sort of thing. But what role do you think the PTO plays here? Because I've seen some great comments. I think it was Renee Keeley was basically saying that every single athlete who's racing a PTO event should be tested pre and post. What do you think in terms of this? And I'm not trying to say that this is their thing, but I feel like if they are trying to step up as this body, do you think they have a responsibility? How do you see them fitting into this?
I think they have a responsibility in terms of responses. Like you say, I mean, Rennie Keeley's suggestion of tested pre and post is a good idea. Certainly, I think anywhere where you can get more testing in is a good thing. But I think they have to be very robust. Like they say, they're going through the legal checks at the moment, but they have to be very robust in how they respond as an organization when someone is popped who is representing their organization. And that has to be some level of expulsion, or something like that. Their response will be interesting to see over the next few weeks.
You have reminded me. So one of the most interesting guys to follow on social media is Jan van Berkel. And I saw he retweeted this. Where are Jan van Berkel? He basically came up with, here it is, let me find this, what he thinks the PTO should do for people who tested positive. And I actually think, so he said how the professional triathletes could handle convicted athletes. Athletes who serve a ban due to anti-doping rule violation of longer than 12 months can request membership of the PTO after their ban. Membership must be confirmed by the PTO board. Are allowed to race PTO races through normal qualification processes. Are ineligible for any wildcards. Will not get any financial benefits from the PTO except prize money. 20% of their PTO race prize money will be deducted and used for anti-doping education. Images will not be used on any PTO platform except podium pictures of PTO races. The PTO website profile will just state their name and their ranking. What do you think of that?
There you go. That is exactly what I meant, really, in terms of response. In terms of, obviously, the PTO isn't responsible for anti-doping. It's not their bag. But they can be a positive force in promoting anti-doping, and they can certainly be a positive force in the implications and ramifications of what happens to an athlete who's part of their organization once they have been popped for doping, which can be a hell of a dissuader.
We touched on the guilt by association, and we touched on the shadow that this sort of stuff casts. We've spoken a lot about the athletes that have come out and responded. What do you think about the athletes that haven't said anything? Do you think it implies anything? Do you think it means anything? Do you think it doesn't matter?
No, I don't think so. I think for me, when you're in a WhatsApp group and it's someone's birthday and someone says happy birthday, then everybody has to follow suit and say happy birthday. It becomes performative. Even though you might have already said happy birthday individually in an individual message earlier in the day, you suddenly feel pressure because you're the one person who hasn't done it publicly, and that's what I mean. I think athletes should be given the freedom and the decision making to whether they want to say something on this or not, because not everybody wants. Some people deal with things a different way. They internalize things. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, some people just want to go like, oh, this is horrible, and I don't want to put a public statement out. And what you don't want to live in a world where everyone just does things because it's a performative thing and you've got to do it because I've got to roll out my statement. I'd much rather live in a world where those that do are putting out their real feelings and those that don't are dealing with it in their own way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's nothing and people listening, don't interpret, don't try to, see boogeymen under the bed and things like that don't necessarily exist. Understand that this is a nuanced situation. Everyone's going to have a different response. I agree.
It's a bunch of human beings. Some people aren't ones for putting out statements on social media. I don't social media as much as you do. There's a difference there, isn't there?
Although I have noticed you've been putting up the tweets and then attaching a hashtag comment immediately after, and it's like, dude, doesn't work on this platform. Don't do it.
I'm learning.
You get there. Crit points for trying. Look, I'm hoping that this is the end of us talking about this. I don't think it is going to be, but for now it is. I find myself get physically exhausted every time we talk about it, every time I think about it. I've had enough. Next week's episode is going to be an absolute banger because we're going to be able to preview the PTO Ibiza race as well as the ITU long distance world champs. I'm excited about that. So there's some good positive things coming the next few weeks, guys. I'm really excited about that Ibiza race, like frothing for it, to be honest. And it's a positive. So we've made it through this week together, guys. Let's stick to it together. I think the way that the sport has come together is fantastic. And yeah, Jimbo, a pleasure as always, mate. Talk to you next week. Happy birthday.
Cheerio. Cheers, mate.